Hi guys, Darrel Smith from South Dakota one more time. I'm I've been talking a lot in my videos about Vietnam, and it was an important part of my life. It was an eventful part of my life, but I would guess you're getting sick and tired of hearing about it. So you'll be happy to know that I have this one story to tell today, and then the next story I tell will be my flying one of my warplanes, a single engine, single seat airplane, across the Pacific Ocean back to California. And that would be the end of my Vietnam experience. So I guess you'll be happy to hear that. Today, my little story is an uneasy return. LaCour and I had made visual landings. We had taken off and we taxied, we'd made visual landings after a bombing mission. We'd been on a two-plane bombing mission. He was my leader. And we made VFR landings and taxied toward the gate. Our departure had been only, less than an hour before, and it was a bombing mission. And the bombing mission was close enough that from our pattern altitude of 7,000 feet, you could see the airfield that we landed on. So it was only about 30 miles from the airfield that the war was happening. Well, after airborne, Tom, being the leader, made radio contact with the forward air controller, FAC, and they were usually in small airplanes flying lower altitude over the forest and fields, and they were the ones that controlled our flight. So as soon as he made contact, this forward air controller started giving us information as to the target. It would be first of all, the altitude above sea level, so we'd know how to adjust our pattern from that, what the suggested best run-in heading, the target description as to what it was, men in the field or equipment, and also how much enemy fire we could expect by being over the target. While we were over the target, I have a few times I've had the forward air controller said, "I can't mark it for you today, boys, because it's too hot. I won't fly in there when they're shooting that much." Anyway, Tom and I came back. We dropped our bombs. We made a pattern and dropped our bombs. Usually we drop one or two bombs at a time, and a racetrack pattern, type pattern, and we would go in individually and drop one or two bombs until all our bombs were missing. Once we joined up or finished dropping our bombs and then joined up, the forward air controller would give us a BDA, a bomb damage assessment. He would tell us what kind of damage we'd done with our bombs. Well, on this particular day, we landed and we were taxiing toward our parking spots. And our parking spots were defined by barrels, 55-gallon barrels that were filled with sand, stacked several layers high in between the aircraft. And the idea here would be if we happen to get mortar or rocket and damage to one aircraft, those barrels would possibly cause it to be confined to that aircraft alone. It wouldn't damage the aircraft sitting next to it. Well, he taxied to his spot and I taxied to mine, and as I turned into my spot, it was pretty obvious the group of men, and I could tell right away that they were senior officers standing in my landing parking spot. Well, it was a little bit of concern on my part. My first thought was, what in the heck have I done wrong now? And as I shut down the engine, these guys were moved toward my ladder, and down deep, I wondered if my flying career might be over. I shut down the engines, did my procedures, unstrapped, and took my personal gear and came down the ladder, and I was relieved to see that the senior officers there were smiling. It made me feel a lot better. As I hit the ground, two of them came over, both senior officers, squadron commander, group commander, came over and shook my hand. So what had happened was, some way, I don't know if they knew exactly or not, but they picked my flight to say that that was the 20,000th combat mission from that particular airfield. If I remember correctly, it was only my 17th combat mission since I had arrived there, but it was the 20,000th for that airfield. Tom LaCour, my leader, was a tall, thin Marine. He grew up in north upstate New York. He was a very relaxed, capable pilot. He seemed to be unmoved by the war that was going. He was nonchalant and by all the war that was going on. He was a good man. When the guys came over and congratulated me on flying the 20,000th mission, as I mentioned, I was worried that my flying career was over, but they made a news release, and it was in a lot of newspapers, even the newspapers back at home in Tipton County, Tennessee. The Covington Leader featured an article on that flight and a picture of me. So after leaving the Marine Corps, Tom and I both went to the training command as instructors, and we instructed for a year there. I can remember our families and him, the LaCours and the Smiths would drive 50 miles quite often to a small Mexican restaurant where it would kind of set the standard for Mexican food for us. It was some really good food. We both got out of the Marine Corps and eventually went to work as commercial pilots. I flew for Northwest Airlines and he flew for United Airlines. During war, you formed some pretty close relationships, but after a while, those tend to fade. And I say here that I hope I understood that he eventually lived in Hawaii and Kauai, and I was a pilot for Northwest Airlines based in Honolulu. We saw each other only one time, and that was just for a quick dinner once. And so I just hoped that Tom was living a peaceful, wonderful life in Hawaii. Well, just a little footnote to that is that when I wrote this book, somebody somehow found Tom. I sent him a copy of the book, and we made contact. And I have seen him again. He and his wife came to Rapid City and stopped by, and we visited for an hour or so. So that's the end of my story. And you'll be happy to know that there's no more Vietnam stories. The next story will be flying the A4 across the Pacific Ocean. Thank you very much.